Hey everybody, this is Steve and Seth with Red Lantern Tour Company. We're coming back with another podcast episode here to talk about the finish of the race now that everyone has come across underneath the Burled Arch in Nome and they've done the award ceremony. Seth, how are you?
Doing great here in Fairbanks. Very interesting race towards the end there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, a lot of drama towards the end, even with the first two, Brent and Dallas there coming a little closer than I think people expected when they went to bed. Waking up, seeing that Dallas had regained some ground there. But yeah, it was a good race.
Yeah, it was. It's never over till it's over. People always forget, they chalk this stuff up after they get, past Uniclete or within 100 miles or leaving White Mountain. When you're on the Bering Sea there and you are on the sea, there's no trees, there's nothing to stop that wind, and those storm patterns come in seemingly out of nowhere. And it can be a nice, bright, sunshiny day and you go over the hill and it's a totally different ball game.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that group in the back there experiencing some of those storms, and pretty impressive watching them finish. Apiak right in with the Red Lantern award winner. Congratulations to her. This was her second race, I believe. So a lot of perseverance to come through and battle through some of those storms that they were dealing with back there, because it did not look like it was easy sledding towards the end.
No, and congratulations to Brent also. He's really made a turnaround. He had some success in the Quest, still has some success in the Quest, and then he stumbled along the trail and picked himself back up, regrouped, took a few years away from the limelight, so to say, and kind of is a different racer now. How he's racing is slightly different strategy. And I'd hate to say somebody ran a perfect race, because I don't think that's possible, but that was a really nice race, really nice execution. I'd like to sit down with him way off of camera and ask him some of the run decisions he made there and some of the places he camped. But, he's out there, I'm not. He knows his dogs and he knows what he needed. And apparently I was impressive. And honestly, Dallas, don't take anything from him. That was an impressive run too. Just somebody was slightly faster than him. And you notice that by the finishing. I mean, there's a huge difference between him and third place.
Yeah, that's part of what I was going to bring up, is they both ran extremely impressive races, and it's obvious to see the fact that they finished 1-2, but that gap between the next group that came in 3, 4, 5, 6, they were just so far ahead. And like you said, it probably isn't possible to run a perfect race, but man, they really did an amazing job of what their strategy was, and whether it was sticking to it or making changes on the fly, getting through some of that tough wind at the end. It was really impressive. I feel like you don't often see, and not saying Brent won wire to wire, but just first in at almost all the checkpoints towards the end, I think he was. And then also being able to finish first in Nome, you don't see that too often.
Yeah, and I hate to put too much value on the safety to Nome thing. Some people say it's an award they would never want to win, meaning you left too much in the tank. But if you look at Brent and Dallas's safety to Nome time compared to pretty much anybody in the race, they're right in the mix of it. I mean, Dallas had one of the fastest times from safety to Nome. He was right there, and those teams had a lot left in them, and they went through some pretty bad stuff right there at the end. So, man, hands down to both of those guys.
Yeah, I think Yor had set the best time with 2 hours 26 minutes from safety to Nome, and I mean Dallas was right there, 2 hours 33 minutes. Brent 2 hours 50 minutes. So, those teams were hauling at the end too. They weren't slowing down at all. They were obviously well trained and ready to roll. But I think that comes back to how those two ran the race and knew what they could get out of their teams for the finish as well.
Yeah, definitely impressive.
what sort of insight might you have with what Brent may have dealt with, making that run from White Mountain to Nome and some of those high winds out there on the coast? What's,
Fortunate my runs into Nome. I'm trying to think here. I've never seen the blowhole bad. I've seen it average, where it's just windy. I've seen it dead silence out there. My rookie year, I got to Nome and I was talking to some experienced people. I don't know who it was, but people with 20 finishes or so, and I had to ask them, "Where's the blowhole?" I was fortunate enough to go through there on a very odd day, where there was no wind. So I haven't faced in that particular area really, really bad conditions. I have faced them other places on the trail. And like I was saying, that coast, with trees and stuff in your normal environment, when wind and storms come up, it really muffles it. When you're on that coast, man, you have no protection. And if you sneeze a mile away, it seems like you can, feel it.
Yep.
And there is no protection. And a lot of the stuff is like ground storms. You hear that word a lot. And what that basically is if you could magically float above the ice 30 feet, it would just be a perfect sunshiny day. But on that ground, you may not be able to see 5 feet in front of you. And it's just 20, 30, 40 mile an hour wind, and any bit of snow, it will pick up and twirl in the air, and your visibility goes to nothing. It's cold, it's miserable, and you think the whole world is collapsing around you. You can't find the trail sometimes. Trail markers may be broke, may be blown away. And then if the ice is polished, now you have a traction problem. And the dogs can't get traction, the wind's blowing them, and then they're pulling a big sail, and that big sail is your sled. And the wind hits it from the side, and it can just blow you away. And I know that's kind of shocking to people, but you're there 1 minute, the wind hits, and you may be 20 feet away in one gust. And now you're off the trail, and you gotta find it. When you can't see very far, you have no point of reference like a mountain or a tree to navigate to. You have to go trail marker to trail marker. So if you lose those trail markers, it is really hard to get out of a storm.
Yeah. And I think you hear about teams getting in those storms sometimes and not, and getting turned around and thinking they're going the right direction. And it ends up they're going in the wrong direction because they've got, like you said, no point of reference on where they need to be going, which direction the trail markers are kind of going to lead them.
Yeah. I was coming into Koyuk in 15, and the similar thing happened to me. I got blown off the trail, couldn't find it. It was in the middle of the night. Finally found the trail again. I don't know how long it took, but I made a big circle. If you go back and look at the GPS, and I passed another musher, and he was going the wrong way. And I told him he was going the wrong way, and he told me I was crazy. I was going the wrong way. And we had a little 30-second discussion, and I realized that I was going the wrong way. And I was about to make a huge mistake if he wouldn't have came along just then. I was about to backtrack 30 miles to the checkpoint I just left. And fortunate for me then, there was somebody else out there. When you're Brent, there is nobody else out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can change everything. So and when we talk about like Brent and Dallas going through that storm right there, that storm hit that whole coast. So anybody, wherever they were, either they were in a checkpoint or not, got hit by that same storm. And you could probably see it in the times of what was going on that day, where everybody was in Shaktoolik or Koyuk. And then as they finished, more of those storms rolled in. So sometimes those back teams take a whole lot more punishment as far as the weather goes, because the longer you're on that Bering Sea, you're just rolling the dice. That weather window may be there, it may not, but the longer you're on it, the worse it can get.
Yeah, and it seems almost fitting for this race, the beginning and the middle sections to seemed I'm not going to say smooth sailing because I don't think anything out there is smooth sailing, but relatively smooth. It didn't seem like there was a ton of weather coming in to affect the race at all. And, those teams up front, like Brent and Dallas, almost had relatively clean runs weather-wise until right at the last minute. And then we saw it basically go on for the rest of the week, really.
Yeah.
As it was, hammering the White Mountain area and teams needing to be rescued and spending, almost 24 hours at White Mountain waiting to go when it's safe enough. I would imagine at that point, if you're towards the end and you're sitting at White Mountain, knowing you only have 80 miles left, you're just dying to get to the finish line at that point, and having to sit there for an extra 12 hours is a line of excruciating. I'm sure the White Mountain checkpoint is lovely, so hopefully they were getting their fill on some food and sleep and rest and stuff like that. But I feel like at that point you might want to get out of there and just get on.
I imagine I've never been totally up front, and those guys get less sleep than anybody, I've almost had to be drug out of White Mountain checkpoint. There's a little room in the back corner where most of the time mushers sleep. And I was in there, and there's only me and like one or two other people in the checkpoint that year. And long-term volunteer, I cannot remember his name right now. He grabbed my toe of my sleeping bag and just pulled the sleeping bag off of me and pretty much drugged me along the floor. And it's like, you got to wake up, man. You got to, you don't have much long before your 8 hours is up. And I was like, I just wanted to roll over and sleep, so maybe those guys got caught up and looked a little better when they got into.
Yeah,
no, but that wind, you can see that wind. I looked through a few of those videos, and you can see that wind on Yuka Honda's face and on Bridget Watkins, and that you can see it, man. That wind blasting your face, it makes it puffy and red, and you can really see how the weather played out on them.
Yeah, for sure.
But if one checkpoint to be stuck in, I guess White Mountain's a decent one to be stuck in, but I doubt anybody wanted to be there. They all wanted to get out. So
yeah, it's definitely better than having to wait like 20 hours at the safety roadhouse with who knows how many people in there sleeping on the floor, and you've got the one stove going, and maybe you can hope someone will run food out to you on a snow machine, but in weather, I don't think anyone's really traveling down the trail much. So, and it was good. Tough for those teams that weren't able to finish and had a scratch because of emergency assistance, but it's nice to see that people were able to get out there and give them a hand and help them off the trail. And the dog teams were A-okay and things like that.
I'm really glad no dogs got injured in those storms, or humans, and people look at this maybe from the outside and they don't realize those conditions. Those conditions can turn bad really quick. And, you're required to have certain gear. Most mushers out there hopefully have been in similar situations and know how to react. But it can turn into a sure enough survival. I don't know each individual thing, but, there you saw some helicopters come in and get involved and get people out there.
Yep.
It can turn into a real survival thing within minutes or hours, and your whole world turns upside down. And at that point, it's not about finishing. It's about actually getting home, getting there, all your dogs and you as a person home. And I don't even know how to respond to somebody to say, why do these people scratch? I don't know exactly why, and no one will, but basically your worst night, winter, frozen hell could all happen at once. And some of these teams are only a couple of miles from a shelter, and they can't get there. You can't get 10 more feet down the trail. If they could have moved, they would have moved.
Yeah.
So I see that Riley, he was part of that, what did they nickname the year, the Elam 10 11. Or 12? Elam 11. I believe he was part of that, and he got to the safety shelter this year, and he hung out there at the the safety shelter. So
Yeah,
maybe he learned some stuff from Martin and some of those other guys the first go around he had with this kind of weather.
for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, and I would imagine it's tough once you make it that far and you're, that close to have to either push that emergency beacon or give someone a phone call that says like, I am in a bad way right now. I need some help. As you're striving towards this goal of finishing the race and you're so close, and having to,
yeah,
bow out at that point has got to be tough.
yeah.
And I'm looking here too at, some of the last four that came in and finished. As I was talking with Wade last week, he was really hoping his dogs with Kaylin would be able to cross the finish line. And, just a picture of her, she's got the duct tape on her cheeks to help with the wind coming through. And that's miserable weather to be running through for sure.
Yeah, I was missing every year I watch this, and during the start, no, you kind of miss it. You want to be there. You really want to be on the back of the runners behind a team. Towards the end of this race, I really didn't want to be on the runners behind the team.
Yeah.
So hands down, kudos to everybody who finished this race, and everybody who may not have finished, but was right there in it. It may have been a terrible experience, but it's something to tell your grandkids about, so to say.
Yeah, and I think another interesting story that happened towards the middle of the race that I don't know if you've heard about, but Matt Failer dealing with the moose on the trail and having to ended up shooting it and killing it, but then having to take, the rule is if that happens to you on the trail, you need to work towards like harvesting the animal essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I don't know the details of the law, but Alaska law says is a wanton waste state, so you can't waste game meat, and that includes road accidents and everything. So yes, he dispatched that animal. I don't know what steps he took. I don't know if he gutted it,
Yep.
got the internals out so the moose didn't spoil, and then I've been with other people on the trail. Not during racing, but during training that did something similar, and get the internals out and then go to a place you can get phone service.
Make a phone call and
Make a phone call to Fish and Game and let them deal with it.
yep.
That's got to be a Trojan along, and I'm pretty sure Matt didn't want to dispatch that animal, but it's you have to choose between that moose and your whole entire team. And there's several videos from this year when a moose goes to a dog team, it's not a pretty sight.
No.
And a moose is I like to say it's a Mike Tyson if he was the size of a horse. And that's what it is. He goes to a dog team punching and kicking, and you can get some really serious trouble, you and your dog. So sad to see that happen for the moose. Matt seems to deal with it pretty professional there and made sure everything was followed accordingly.
Yep. And, as someone who's run pretty good races and tends to be competitive out there, I'm sure he was the last thing he was looking forward to having to deal with was A, a moose on a trail, but then B, having to go to those measures to make sure his team and himself weren't getting injured out there. Part of the reason I think it set him back to, finishing 30th this year.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a pretty emotional, mind changing kind of thing that kind of gets you off your game.
Yeah.
I was at the Open North American Championship, which is a different kind of racing just this weekend in sprinting, and they had moose problems on the trail, and they had snow machines out before and during the race, just trying to keep the moose out of the trail and let the racers just get by. And it even in sprint racing, it's a thing there too. And moose this year in Alaska with this terrible snow and then rain, ice that we had in December, the moose just do not want to get off the trail, and it's painful for them to get off the trail. And it could mean their death. So they
Sure.
don't want to get off the trail. And, there's predators known as wolves in Alaska still that do eat these moose and do chase these moose down. I'm not in a moose's head, but I imagine a dog team looks a lot like a wolf pack to a moose.
Yep.
And so they're not going to run from the moose, or the moose isn't going to run from the dog team. They're going to turn and fight because that's their only chance of survival. And then I hear from Fish and Game, there's some other things going on in a moose's head, something about as they get hungry and start starving, that some kind of hormone or something's released in their brain that basically make them very, very angry. And instead of running, their survival techniques kick in and their brain tells their body to fight. And that's what they do. They fight.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on the side because you will lose against the moose every time.
Yep. It is not a battle you want to be partaking in because, yep.
Yeah.
They will take care of business if they have to. So good on Matt for.
I missed being in Nome this year. I'm pretty sure you did too. The finishing banquet there is a huge place to hear all these stories, and it's like a bunch of people sitting around a campfire telling stories. Kind of is the banquet, and that if you really want to know about the race, that's where to know about it.
Yep.
You hear these stories, and they're almost like storybook. I mean, every one of these mushers, finish or didn't finish, have a story to tell about something that happened during one of those storms. And it's just shocking that dogs and human can go through that, and they've been doing this for hundreds of years, go through this stuff. It really takes you back and makes you feel how small humans really are in this world.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Iditarod on their website now, and their latest videos has a link to that finisher banquet replay. I think it's something like 3 hours long or whatever. But whether you watch it on their website or if you can get out there in person, that finishing banquet's such a nice ending ceremony for the entire race. You hear the stories, sit down, have a nice meal. They present the awards from the checkpoints, and then from the finishing of the race, such as trying to think of some of the ones they, best
First fish,
checkpoints, and they do
the golden clipboard and
golden clipboard and
first fish award. There's a lot of awards to the mushers, but there is some to the volunteers too, and it's remarkable. I see Travis Bills won the sportsmanship award.
Yep.
I'm not exactly. Do you know who won the golden harness?
The golden harness on Brent's team.
Oh, it was Brent's leader? Okay.
Yep. I believe so.
For people who don't know, the golden harness is voted on. It doesn't have to be the winner. It usually is a top 10 or top 20 dog. And it is a dog that just usually a lead dog. I believe all the time a lead dog that has gone up and beyond, has done, has basically the MVP of the dogs in the race. That's the Tom Brady of that year, or the, whoever your latest NFL quarterback is. But that's basically the MVP dog, and a lot of congrats go to that dog. And I forgot all the awards they issued this year. They do change from year to year. The Herbie Puck Award was one that always intrigued me. And it was like, if one award I could win, that would be an awesome one, and that's voted on and by a committee. Then he was a great racer and a great native guy who lived out there, and in his spirit, he was also always cheerful and getting down the trail. And so they try to award somebody with that who resembles his way of racing and thinking. Yep.
And then another sort of, they're all pretty honorable, but the Leonard Seppala Humanitarian Award, this will go to the musher that demonstrates the best sort of dog care while remaining competitive throughout the race. Allie Zirkle is, I don't know if she's won the most, but she's usually a big winner from this award. I believe this year Dan Caduce won this. He was the only team to finish with all 14 dogs that he started with at the beginning. So that's impressive in and of itself. And then he also finished fourth in the race. He ran an extremely impressive race. But he won that humanitarian award this year.
Yeah, that's I've never finished with all the dogs I started with. Honestly, to some, it's I guess race strategy plays into that a little bit. But yeah, to finish where he did with all 14 it's pretty impressive. I mean, there's some luck to go in there, but there's a lot of work that happened, not just on this trail, but by him and his partner many days and many hours, months before that. And that's bringing well-trained, healthy, happy dogs to the start line and keeping them that way the entire time. Some of it's luck, I mean, of course, his dog didn't step in a hole or something. You can have those kind of things, but just without luck to get that many dogs to know him healthy and happy is pretty impressive. I'm pretty sure he sacrificed some sleep along the trail to make sure dogs had the right bedding and food and massages and being their little sports medicine doctor out there for him.
Yep.
So kudos to him, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think one other kind of great story that comes from this race, leading back to Brent, who won, this being the 50th anniversary of the race, the first one being run in 1973. I could look up what the finishing times were, but it took them
20 plus days,
3 weeks to do, and to see how far the sport has come, how far dog care has come, and these mushers and what's going on. But Brent winning, and he's someone who lives that lifestyle every day. Basically how those mushers back in 73 lived. He talked about, I think it was at the finish line or earlier in the race, he's mushing on the trails, Susan Butcher and is it Rick Swenson as well, out there in Eureka, and kind of bringing it back to a older school style of team and musher was, I think, cool to see for the 50th as well.
Yeah, I didn't watch Brent's speech, and I haven't talked to Brent, but yeah, Brent did. I believe he rented from Dave Munson, which is Susan's widower. He rented their old training cabin for a few years before he built his own place. Maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but it's still in that same area. Yeah, Rick used to train out there, and then he used to jump over to Manly and spend a lot of time with Joey Reddington, who has also passed now. But Joey Reddington's father helped start this race, one of the main people behind it. And Joey ran this race several times too. And just that old dog knowledge and everything, and to see Brent doing it kind of the old way. Brent lives very remote. He comes into town. If it's once every other week, I would be surprised. He comes in town with his flatbed truck and a trailer, and he loads up food and supplies for him and his dogs and goes back out in the wilderness and pretty much trains his dogs. It's a dream lifestyle for a lot of people, but there's a reason a lot of people don't do it. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah. He was talking about, 18-hour days, 20-hour days, especially when there's snow coming through, clearing paths, getting the trails open for the dogs, the shoveling, the chopping firewood, doing all the stuff, and then taking care of, his dog team there at the same time. He's working all the time.
Yeah.
So it's impressive to see him do it and then race at a high level like this as well.
Yeah. It was, and another kind of side story, I guess we could go on for days about this. You were talking about the first race in 73, and I believe that race was finished in right around 20 days. And what is kind of unique, this is the 50th anniversary, and the original winner, Dick Wilmarth,
Yep.
He passed here this last year. And I believe it was Pete Kaiser, who I believe Dick was from the area. Pete is down there near Bethel. and Pete was carrying some of his ashes with him this year along the trail. So it's kind of coming to a total wrap there with, you know, the first winner in 73 is on the trail while the 50th winner is crossing the finish line is kind of a unique thing.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Dick was from Red Devil, Alaska.
Oh, that's where he was from. Okay.
Finished right 20 days, basically right on the button, 20 days, 49 minutes.
Yeah. And Dick passed a few years ago, but yeah, it's kind of a cool thing in a way, you know. Red Devil is not near Bethel, I would say, but it's up the Kuskokwim River a ways, but still that Kuskokwim lifestyle.
Yep.
And so yeah, that was kind of unique. The first winner and the current winner, and Pete's a winner too, all on the trail at the same time. So that was kind of a cool thing. And yeah, looking back at the race times I'm looking at now, 20 days to, you know, under 8 days and one race. And then this year's, you know, a little over 8.5 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot's changed since then. They actually have a trail now. I don't think those first years they had much of a trail, but
nope.
So,
and looking at it too, Howard Farley, who ran in that race as well, I think he finished 20th here, but he gave a little talk at the finishers banquet yesterday. So that'd be good to check out. He usually gives talks in Nome throughout the whole week of Iditarod, talking about what it was like running back then and sort of the culture around dog mushing. And you could sit there and listen to him talk for hours. He's a wealth of knowledge about the race and just a great speaker. So,
and it is cool to see those guys still around. I know I saw you know, pictures of Dan Seavey's usually around. He ran in the first race. Usually Dick Mackey's around the start or the finish. He ran in the first race. Like you said, Howard Farley, I believe, still a resident of Nome.
yep.
He's always around. And in seeing some of these people, yeah, that are still around, and yeah, just the knowledge they have and the old way, so to say.
Yep.
Makes you feel lucky that you got this aluminum runner sled running real fast in this high-end, highly scientific dog food that you're feeding these dogs. And
Absolutely.
You're not hand making your harnesses and your dog coats. You can actually go to a store and buy them. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yep. They got a little easier these days, but still not easy. That's for sure. Seth, you got anything else you want to add? I'm thinking maybe we wrap this up.
No, I hate to say, I really don't like this part of the year because people try to, and I'm one of them, try to wrap the season up, and I'll probably still go try to get on some runners, and there's still a few races left. Not that I'll be getting in them, but I'll at least be trying to pay attention to some smaller races that are around. But yeah, it was a great race, and glad everybody made it home. Taking it this year. I do miss being out there, and hopefully next year I'll get out to Nome with some people and spread this love we have for the sport.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I got one question for you that I was thinking about earlier and I forgot to ask. You cross the finish line in Nome. You take care of the dogs. You drop them off at the dog lot. Like, what did you have? Would you just like jump right into the shower? Like, what are you doing?
I usually, like, when I got into Nome, I went in the dog lot and I kind of decompressed in the dog lot with the dogs, make sure they were all taken care of. And then usually you have people there who you trust and know, and you kind of turn your dogs over to them. Your sleep status, you're probably not going to make the best decisions for those dogs sometimes anyway. Yep. And then your ground crew is taking care of, and I've been on the other side too. So I've been on both sides of taking care of all the things, flights and stuff for the dogs to get them back home. But usually I just went into the mini there. It's like it's a building. I don't know what the mini really is.
Convention center, they
Yeah.
call it, but yeah.
And I'd sit in there and maybe drink a cup of coffee or something and kind of just relax for 30 or 40 minutes. And then, get to a hotel room or a host family. I was fortunate enough to have some host families some of the years I've been there. Get there, get a nice shower, usually put a bunch of lotion on my face and hands because they're extremely wind burnt, and go to sleep and tell people not to wake me up except for food.
Yeah.
And when I wake up and get a good 8 to 12 hours. And what's funny is you won't sleep that much, or I don't. I'll wake up in 2 hours or 4 hours and wonder where my boots are, where I'm at. And I got to get out of here because I've been in this checkpoint too long. Your body gets in a pattern of only sleeping a few hours. And and from that point, it's just recover. And then once my dogs fly out, then I'll probably go, sit down at a restaurant or hang out with some people. I'm not a dancer, so I don't really go into the nightlife scene that much, but I do like to hang out and get some. The one thing is the pizza place there with the milkshake. Wade Mars has me addicted. You got to get it as many milkshakes as you possibly can while in Nome at the pizza shop.
This is Airport Pizza.
It's on the right side of Main Street.
Oh,
it's about a block off.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get as many milkshakes as possible. That's the goal.
I've never had a milkshake there. I'll have next year. I'll grab one.
Yeah.
Milano's milkshake. All right. And for those people, if Seth's not going to go on the dance floor, I can cut a rug. So I'd be out on the floor, down at the Board of Trade or wherever it is on a Front Street there. But great. I think that wraps it up for us and kind of talking about Iditarod 2022. Maybe we can catch up in a little bit and talk about some of the other races that are going on, who's running in them, and maybe keep people informed about some of that stuff. I know Wade was saying he's doing some races down in the lower 48 and coming back up to Alaska actually to run another either 200 or 300 miler. So maybe we can chat about those.
Will do. I guess this is goodbye for the Iditarod for this year, and can't wait till next year.
Yep, absolutely. I'm Steve. That's Seth. You can check us out at redlanterntourco.com. Check out some of our previous videos and reach out if you got any questions about the tours that we're running. We appreciate you taking the time. Thanks.